realist presentation and play by Antoine Chekhov that is going to be presented by Shima Farhad, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think that he is in the class or she is in the class yet, so I'm waiting for him to turn up so that we can have our presentation about him. If not, I will conduct a class in other way, okay? So let us give some time to Shima to get into the class for his other presentation. If there is any other presentations apart from Shima, according to the list that we have, style sheet, according to the style sheet, Shima is going to present the cherry orchard. But if any of you are ready for your presentation, you are also welcome to take part in the presentation. Please let me know. If not, we have to wait a little bit for Shima, and then if he did not turn out, I will do something else, okay? We will talk about realism and naturalism, and the last two, and also other works by Chekhov as well, okay? Just give some time to him, up to 11:30, and then we will start our job, okay? Can you hear my voice? As I have mentioned before, because I've received some notifications that you cannot hear my voice in the group. I was saying that Shima Farhad is going to give a presentation today about Chekhov, Cherry Orchard, as our last play for a realist drama. I'm waiting for him to get into the class and to start the presentation. But it seems that he or she, I don't know, I think Shima, in Iran, Shima is the name of a lady. I think it is a lady. So I'm waiting for her to get into the class and have her presentation. Because she hasn't sent the presentation to the group as well. Okay, very good. So is there anyone else? Give me a moment, please. آی دکتر صدای من الانم پخش میشه؟ آی دکتر الان صدای من پخش میشه؟ سلام، صدای من رو میشنوید؟ سلام، وقت شما بخیر. خواهش میکنم شما تقصیر شما نبود، مشکل میدونم. شنیدم که تو چه اتفاقاتی افتاد، متاسفم از این بابت. به هر حال این قسمت آخر رو که اضافه کردید، امیدوار هستم اون مشکل اصلی رو که اون دفعه مد نظر بود که تعداد صفحات در درجه اول بود و اینکه فقط چرا یک نویسنده و شاعر رو انتخاب کرد، اونم سلکتد هست، اینا رو یکم پوشش بده توی قسمت آخر که شما فایندینگزتون رو اضافه کردید. در واقع باید یه بخشی رو بذارید توی جلسه، اونجا هم حتما این رو اضافه کنید که فایندینگز های من به صورت مشخص از این تحقیقم چه چیزایی هستن که در قالب کانکلوژنتون میاد. من فکر میکنم اگه فایندینگزاتون رو، یعنی کانتریبیوشناتون رو جدا بکنید، به صورت مشخص بگید که these are my findings توی قسمت کانکلوژنتون، شاید برای اونها یه مقداری به اصطلاح بهتر باشه. بعد قرار شد که بله درسته. بله، یکی همین که حالا شما بر اساس اون فرمتی که اونجا دارن، اگر هدینگ بدید به قسمت‌های مختلف از اینتروداکشنتون گرفته، نمیدونم statement of the problem، نمیدونم چی، همه اینا رو هدینگ بدید. بعد قسمت‌های بعدیتون هم هدینگ دادید، اشکالی نداره بدید که اونها یه مقداری از این بابت خیالشون راحت بشه، چون اونا به اون فرمت عادت دارن و فرمت دیگه ای رو نمیتونن بپذیرن. احسن، اگه اونا رو بیاری عالی میشه. علت این که من با عجله دارم میگم به خاطر اینکه توی فایلی، نه خواهش میکنم، اون فایلی رو که میفرستی براشون به عنوان پایان نامتون ها، تو اون منظورم این کارو بکنید. آفرین، 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 آفرین. خیلی امیدوار هستم. میگم فقط نگرانی من اینه که باز هم خدای نکرده، چون الان دو گروه اونجا شدن دیگه، یه گروه نیست، دو گروه. حالا نمیدونم به کدوم گروه شما رو ارجاع خواهند داد. اینکه به اصطلاح دوستانه تر برخورد بکنن با کار شما، همون چیزای همیشگی ممکنه باز هم باشه که این خانم برای اولین بار نیست که داره رو کارش داره کار روی، در واقع آثارش داره کار میشه و این اولین بار نیست که، نمیدونم، چون برای همه میگن. بعد دوم این که باید اونجا بتونید ساپورت بکنید کارتون رو که من با یک شاعر و با یک سری شعرهایی که فقط در این هیته هستند ازش به صورت سلکتد کار کردم و کار من برای یک پروژه دکتری در واقع قانع کننده است. این یه مشکلی که از اول بوده، حالا من چندین بار اینو گفتم نمیخوام مجددا بگم. امیدوارم اونجا دیگه هیچ مشکلی ایجاد نکنه. با این قسمتایی که افزودید انشالله به امید خدا قضیه حل بشود. دیگه من فکر نمی کنم کار دیگه ای بشه انجام داد تو این وضعیت، یعنی تو این وضعیت و در این مرحله دیگه کل پایان نامه رو که نمیشه تغییر داد، باید یه چیزایی بهش کم یا زیاد کرد که شما انجام دادید و انشالله براتون آرزوی موفقیت میکنم. با امید خدا همه چیز به خوبی پیش بره. به هیچ وجه تقصیر شما نبود، در هر حال اتفاق میفته، مسئله نیست. فقط من با اجازه از محضر آقای دکتر دشپیما، آقای دکتر اسماعیلی، جناب مهندس پرتو عزیز و جناب منجی عزیز خداحافظی میکنم. اگر با من امری هست که فبل مراد، اگر نه که شما رو به خدا میسپارم. زنده باشید. خواهش میکنم. خواهش میکنم. با امید خدا، با امید خدا اختیار دارید. انشالله. انشالله موفق باشید. من از آقای ستاری هم تشکر میکنم. اگر اجازه میدید به من از جلسه خارج بشم، اگر نه که بازم خدمتتون باشم. دستتون در نکنه. موفق باشید. خدا نگهدار. خدا نگهدار. من الان اند میتینگ خودم رو بزنم، من خروج بکنم که مشکلی ایجاد نمیکنه برای کار شما. بسیار بس. ان موفق باشه خانم برزگر. خواهش می‌کنم. یا علی مدد. خدا نگهدار. Do you have my voice now? Is it okay? Okay, very good, fine. Well, it seems that Shima did not have a chance to come to the class, so I will start talking about realism and naturalism, the two actually the school that we have started our work with. If we want to consider the specifications of realism, we can talk about realism in action, realism of the characters, the treatment of the social problems and ideas which are reflected in the plays, recognition of the psychological motivations, as we could see in The Father by Strindberg, realism of dialogue, which is very close to the everyday speech, a use of prose as opposed to verse, the emphasis on the individual creation of the dramatic situation on the stage. Another concept is the portrayal of the drama. Which are inherited in the lives of the middle classes, of the ordinary people. As you remember, we have discussed this in the previous session, socially. And the union of the many forces into an integral, an integrated whole in the treatment of the people and action, and the portrayal of the commonplace, the revolution of the woman, which is represented in these works usually, the as we could see in Doll's House by Henry Gibson, the departure from character romanticization, and the creation of drama of pure character analysis. If you want to categorize To categorize all these specifications of realism, it is also reflected in the plays that are written in American drama as well. For example, the principles of realism in American drama are featured as instances upon the defense of the experienced commonplace. Characters are more important than plots, and there is an attack upon romanticism and romantic writers. There's a kind of emphasis upon morality, often self-realized, and upon an examination of idealism. And there is a concept of realism in a serialization of democracy, which is represented in their works. If you want to identify the characteristics of realistic writing, we can point for specific or a specified concept. One is the philosophy of realism is known as descendental or non-transcendental. As we know, in America at the beginning of the 19th century, we have the emergence of transcendentalism, which was posed by some scholars such as Emerson, Thoreau, Kohler, and others. So against this tendency, exactly, realism rejects imaginative idealization in favor of close observation of outward appearances. Exactly, very good. And this can be seen in the plays of the writers that we have just in the last 2 weeks we have covered. The purpose of writing is to instruct and to entertain. Realists were pragmatic, relativistic, democratic, and experimental. Second, the subject matter of realism is drawn from our experience, and it treated the common, the average, the non-extreme, the representative, the probable. And we could see the reflection of this in a way in the 2 works that we have scrutinized in the last previous presentations that we had from your friends, both in The Father by Strindberg and Doll's House by Ibsen. Third, the morality of realism is intrinsic, integral, relativistic. Relations between people and society are explored, as we could see in those novels, and as we can see in Chekhov's plays that we are going to study next. And the fourth, the style of realism is the vehicle which carries realistic philosophy, subject matter, and morality. Emphasis is placed upon scenic presentations, de-emphasizing authorial comment and evaluation, and there is an objection toward the omniscient point of view that you can see, not only in drama, but also in novels as well. The complexity refers to the interwoven, entangled density of experience. Multiplicity indicates the simultaneous existence of different levels of reality or of many truths, equally true from some point of view. And also we have realistic characterization, which there is the belief among the realists that humans control their destinies. Characters act on their environment rather than simply reaction to it. And character is superior to circumstances. As I've mentioned, character is more important than the plot, opposite to what Aristotle says in his Poetics when defining tragedy. There he mentions that plot is the most important element of any play. And character is the second most important. But here we see that realist playwrights are using this vice versa. If you want to talk about the realistic techniques, we can refer to first setting thoroughly familiar to the writer. As we can see, a perfect reflection on the stage by the playwrights. Plot emphasizing the norm of daily experience. It's very tangible. It is very close to experience. It's a representation of, as you have mentioned, representation of a close observation of outward experiences. Ordinary characters studied in depth. The characters are not superheroes, they're not heroes, they're ordinary, down-to-earth people, but they are studied in depth, as we did in Doll's House, and specifically in Father, because we have psychological concept and aspects there as well. Or complete authorial objectivity, no intrusion from the author or playwright seen in the text. And responsible morality, the world truly reported. They find it as a responsibility, moral responsibility, all the playwrights or all other realist writers, that they have the responsibility to report the world completely and truly. When we talk about naturalism, because in some cases naturalism was also represented in the works of the playwrights, and there is a close relationship between naturalism and realism. It is interesting to refer to Mr. Pieser, realism and naturalism in 19th century American literature, when he says there are two types of perception about this. One is that naturalism is an extension or communication of realism with the addition of the pessimistic determinism. Because we know in naturalism, determinism is social determinism, sexual determinism, gender determinism, historical determinism, biological determinism, all these determinisms are considered. And as Richard Chase puts it, naturalism is realism with the necessitation ideology, the great necessity to ideology. And second, naturalism is different from realism, totally. For naturalism, the subject matter, according to Donald Pieser, is this subject matter deals with those raw and unpleasant experiences which reduce characters to degrading behavior in their struggle to survive. And these characters are mostly from the lower middle or the lower classes. They are poor, uneducated, and unsophisticated. In the case of Doll's House and the Father, we did not have such thing. The characters belong to the middle class. Second, the milieu is the situation that the characters exist in, is the commonplace and the unheroic. Life is usually the dull round of daily existence. But the naturalist discovers those qualities in such characters usually associated with the heroic or the adventurous acts of violence and passion leading to desperate moments and violent death. The suggestion is that life on its lowest levels is not so simple as it seems to be. and as it appears to human being. And the last one, there is a discussion of fate and hubris that affect a character. Generally, the controlling forces is society and the subordinating environment that cause them. The concept of naturalistic characters can be categorized in two ways. First, the characters are conditioned and controlled by environment, heredity, chance, or instinct. And these things are going to affect their psychology as well, as we could see in the father. But they have compensations, humanistic values, with affirm their individuality in life, their struggle for life becomes heroic, and they maintain human dignity. Second, the naturalist attempts to represent the intermingling in life of the controlling forces and individual worth, and they do not dehumanize their characters. Now let me go back to when you're talking about realism and naturalism. We can also consider it as a very dangerous term, which means a certain movement in drama, and it began in the second half of the 19th century in Europe. Since Greek times, however, they used reality, but they were not considered realists because they tried to mimic the real world into their works. Because of their style, okay, yes, Mohanad, you are going to present Buffalo, so we can talk about this when you are up to it. Yes, we have lots of things to talk about. The modern, postmodern, and the relationship between these two with realism. Their style, realism is a general term, but particularly realism in drama has its own codes, which are different from that of those before. For example, Ibsen is considered to be modern playwright, but not modernist. So realism seems to be a reaction against romanticism and was rooted in a socioeconomic situation all over Europe. As we could see, its reflection in the works of the Norwegian playwright or a Swedish playwright like Strindberg and Henrik Ibsen, or Pirandello, the Italian playwright. A reaction toward industrial revolution, growth of capitalism, and inventions that followed industrial revolution. Steam, steam engine, factories, locomotives, that has changed the world of the people. And the result was industrialization plus urbanization that led to the peasants come to city for work. The irony is that the development of the industrialization made unequal classes, bourgeoisie, and emergence of the ideas of Karl Marx. French Revolution had advocated newly emerging middle classes, conflict between upper middle and working classes. Much stronger among the middle class and the bourgeois class. And there appeared exploiting middle class, exploited working classes, the middle class, the bourgeois class, the new emerged class, which was the direct outcome of industrialization and capitalization and the development of bourgeoisie and this kind of things, that they did not have any relationship with the upper class and lower class. This new class was something totally different that started to exploit the working class. And their qualities were, and the way of living were so separated from each other that in many plays or even novels, for example, novels written by Kingsley in 19th century, who himself was a Tory member and became a Prime Minister of England twice. He had a trilogy. The middle work of this trilogy is called Sibyl, and the subtitle of this novel is called Or True Nation. It wants to show that, not only in Kingsley's works, but in other works as well, that the difference that exists between the classes in England is so vast and so deep that it seems that they are from different nations. The lower class do not have any understanding of the middle class, and the middle class, the vice versa, do not understand the lower class at all, and there is no relationship between the upper class and the middle class, the new emergent middle class. Although they live in one land, shoulder to shoulder in one city, but they do not have any understanding of each other. That's why the novels of the 19th century and the plays of the 19th century tried to make somehow a kind of a thorough understanding of this great gap that exists between each class. In the second half of the 19th century, aside from the ideas of Karl Marx and his idea on capitalism, which was reflected in his very important book called Capital, which he co-authored it with his friend Engels, who himself was a son of a factory owner in Germany, interestingly. And this book became the manifesto of socialism and communism later. Positivism emerged as an important phenomenon to explain natural and social relationship. People loved the new invention, such as photography, electric bulbs, telephone, and so on. Positivism, which glorified the new inventions, was the value of asset of the day, meaning that reality can be observed through laboratory investigation and through the five senses. This is the meaning of positivism. That kind of observation could be pinpointed as the pure truth, which gave people a relief and a nice feeling, because they were sure about the things that they did not have any fixed idea about it. When this kind of truth was fixed for them, it gave them a kind of a release, kind of a assurance that what truth is. At the same time, sociology gained strength through the ideas of Auguste Comte, who claimed just as we could find truth in experimenting science, we could do this in society as well. So the application of the positivist view on the social ideas. Well, in hard sciences such as chemistry, physics, mathematics, biology, and topics alike, which we call them hard sciences, the truth is quite fixed and unchangeable because it is based on formulas. But in sociology, psychology, philosophy, literature, and fields like this, which are called soft sciences, since they are not formulated, since they are not fixed, since the results are always changing, maybe they are not considered as very serious positivist outcomes. But Auguste Comte, the German philosopher, applied this kind of idea and ideology and theory on sociological ideas as well. The study of environment, on the destiny of an individual, family, or a society. He said we could study the effect of environment on the destiny of an individual, family, or a society, something which is very much interested for the, or it is considered for the naturalists and in some cases realists. After Auguste Comte, next come Darwin with his studies in human originality and his books, The Origin of a Species, in which he meant natural selection, survival of the fittest, and he also dealt with the belief in metaphysical power. It shows that human being who considers itself as the center of the power and the earth is actually controlled by its origin and the survival of the concept of the survival of the fittest. Because 19th century was packed with humanism and liberal humanism, which believed totally in the power of humanity and the power of human scientific observation and positivist observation of its surrounding and environment. Then come the idea of fate and destiny. The Greek, the gods determined the destiny. Later, Sophocles mentioned that will determine the destiny. Will determine the destiny. We can see this in all of his plays. The most important and the most obvious is Oedipus Rex, Antigone, Oedipus in Cornelius. We can see the power of destiny. Oedipus cannot escape from his destiny. He is doomed to accept his destiny. In Shakespeare, tragic hero shaped his destiny As in French classicism, tragic flaws shaped and, however, always, through all the periods, the God was there and was respected till Darwin. Even in the place of Shakespeare or in the French neoclassicist plays and dramas of the 18th century French, they were all always appeared there until the ideas of Darwin was released. Darwin also introduced the concept of heredity, which added to Comte's environment and Marx's ideas, who said our fate is made by economic system, shattered the deep belief and friendship with God, interfered this relationship and a firm belief in God. Because now the centrality of the liberal humanism was shattered. Darwin, Marx, later we have Freud, Nietzsche, and Einstein and Planck. These are the physicians, psychoanalysts, biologists, and philosophers who have started to shaken the liberal humanist beliefs of the 19th century and firm beliefs of the 19th century and took the centrality from human being and put it in something else. Darwin puts it on the survival of the fittest and their ancestors. Nietzsche puts it on the will of toward power. Freud puts it on the id and the libido, and he believes that what actually motivates human being action is not will of God. It is its libido and the unconscious force hidden in its libido, the depth of its libido. And Einstein represented the theory of relativity, which is something, nothing is very fixed, it is relative, and Max Planck by representing the idea of quantum theory. But toward the turn of the century, what was understood to be truth, the general positivist idea, and the religious ideology was left behind. So realism emerged then as a movement which investigated how man's fate was determined by three concepts: environment, economy, and heredity. I forgot to say, Marx believed in the importance of economic situation. This is what human being is based on and guides and actually leads human beings toward their lives. This kind of focalization required a new theater, so new rules were adapted from the point of view of the playwrights. The most important thing was to show reality and nothing else on the stage. So, the historical drama was abandoned. Historical stuff was the need of romanticism, but with realism, reality couldn't go back in time. Shakespeare's historical plays were not also accepted at this period. The plays had to deal with the contemporary events as it was reflected in both Strindberg all plays and also some of Henrik Ibsen's plays and Antoine Chekhov's plays mostly. The language of a drama should be contemporary, not eloquent, not lower class, contemporary. Ordinary people speaks with it. As we could see it clearly in Doll's House, as the day of the presentation, the people who go and sit and watch it, they should understand it perfectly because it speaks with their language, the language that they understand it, not from the language of the 16th centuries in the 20th century. No, the language that they can understand it. The costumes, the way they dressed up, would be the same of the current fashion again. They wear a kind of a clothes that were very popular on that specific period of time. If it is in the 19th century, the late 19th century, we know that in 19th century a great change started to appear in the style of wearing clothes, and the clothes became much more easier to wear, and they did not follow any restrictions that they used to have before. Um, in a way, Eugene O'Neill's plays, in a way, yes. But Eugene O'Neill's plays actually moves toward somehow a kind of a modern type of plays. But yes, they are also very much close to uh, the real situation of the society. So the issues were discussed should be the issues of the day, up to date, very common, very at hand, very tangible. Although being true to life had already started with romantic melodrama, real dogs, um, hens and cocks and on the stage. They used to bring these kind of animals, the real animals, on the stage. Yet with realism as a new wave, the illusions of realistic places and items were not so free. If you were showing an event happening in a room, you should show exactly that room, which is called fourth wall condition. Exactly look like the room that the action is taking place in it. The stage was made of three walls because the fourth wall is toward the audiences. You couldn't even quote not to disturb the private life of that room. We can see this very minute details in the works of George Bernard Shaw, the Irish playwright, which we are going through here. He's Pygmalion later in our presentations. And we see that how specifically he explains the decoration on mise en scène on the stage. The lightening, the period of the day, morning, evening, night, and the seasons were adjusted by light as exact as possible, something which was missing in the classical plays, so that Aristotle did not have any idea about it. But by the use of the light, they could have make a clear distinction between the day